to follow that up, because now we've talked about dying and what happens afterward. Oh, how wonderful. But I didn't forget, esteemed audience thinks I did, but I didn't. What kind of creepy stuff happened at that cabin?
Oh, the cabin. Okay. So Sorrow's Knot is my horror novel. I don't read horror novels because I am super easily creeped out. You said Banucula wasn't scary, but I read it when I was like 6 and had to hang a cross over my bed to keep the vampire rabbits away.
For the record, I love Banucula, just not that scary. I don't want to get angry, fans. You call yourself a middle grade ninja and you don't love Banucula. I do. It's great.
Yeah, anyway, I was scared by it. That is my level of tolerance for creepy books. Okay, it was set early and it was set low, so naturally I wrote one. And it's about, it's a world in which not all shadows, but any shadow can contain this sort of hungry, amorphous force, some of which used to be human. And the ones that used to be human can watch and wait and plot. And if they touch you, you're in big trouble. So it's, it's this world, it's set in the forest. There's a meadow in the forest, and it's surrounded by a big fence made out of strings because the dead are repelled by these kind of cat's cradle-y kind of actions and rhymes. And it's a deeply creepy novel. It's the novel where I had to always keep track of where the sun was so that I could keep track of where the shadow was. And you just become hyper aware of, shadows and movements that you can't source. Like if you see something moving out of the corner of your eye, you don't just assume that's, sometimes you read something, it's like you're reading it in December, but it's set in the summer, and then you go outside and it's cold and you're surprised.
Mm-hmm, sure.
So I was having that experience, but over a long period of time. I was like deeply immersed in this world where the shadows were going to kill me. So naturally, I rented a cabin in the woods.
Good thinking.
Yeah, I had a deadline. My kids were really little, and I had this intense deadline. So I'm like, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to rent a cabin in the woods. I didn't have this office then, so I was like, we're going to run away, and we're going to finish this book. So I rented this little cabin on the Otter River down on Lake Erie, and literally in the woods. And I was writing one night at the kitchen table, and the house is lit up from the inside, which means you can't see outside, right? You can only kind of see the trees. And there's this kind of sense of bulk and the sense of movement outside, but you can't see out the window. And I'm writing in this little lit up room late at night, no one around. And I get to the part where the white hand, the amorphous force has got them kind of pinned down in the corner. And then there's a knock at the door. I screamed so loud. I just, it was the cabin owner. It was the guy that I'd rented it from coming to make sure that I was doing okay out there. And it's one of those moments where I'm like, having a gun in the house is a bad idea, children. I totally just fired randomly through the window out of fear. I was so terrified because I'd spooked myself already, and I was all tense and all worked up, and already literally afraid of my own shadow. And this, the door's right there. This is a tiny little house, so it was, it couldn't have been 3 feet away from my head. And all of a sudden, there's someone there, and a big noise, and this, yeah. I thought for sure I was going to die. And I had to talk him out of, like, I'm a novelist. We're all like this, really. It's fine.
First time I read Salem's Lot, I was living in my first apartment, and my college buddy knew I was reading it. And of course, in that book, the vampires float up to the windows, and they knock on the window and say, "Let me in," and they wait for that invitation. And as soon as you say, "Yeah, come on in, you're my friend. You haven't recently died or anything, right? I mean, you're flying, but otherwise it's cool." And then they attack you. That's spoilers, that's Salem's Lot. Anyway, my buddy knew I was reading that, and there was just enough space from the porch to my bedroom window that he could stretch out, and I was on the 3rd floor, so he was risking life and limb for this, but he could knock on my bedroom window and poke his head over, and I this is the most scared I've ever been. I fell out of bed. Oh my God.
That's that's just cruel.
I had that feather in his cap forever. I don't know that it was worth the risk he took, but he still brings it up occasionally. You remember that time I got you more than you'll ever get me? Like, yeah, no, you win. I don't have anything scarier for you. Mm-hmm. Have you ever had a paranormal experience, or are all your ghost stories theoretical?
All my ghost stories are theoretical, yeah. I have had dreams I can't explain, and when you talk to people, they have had experiences that they can't explain. It doesn't surprise me as a scientist that certain things about the world are inexplicable or unexplained, at least. I think we know 10% of what we really need to know to get around in the world. So, but no, I've never had something that just convinced me that there is an afterlife or alien life or ley lines or extrasensory perception or any of those things.
So I've never seen a flying saucer. Steve Audience knows I have to ask that question because
I always have to. I had a telescope when I was a kid, and I once saw a string of falling stars moving slowly, and I never figured out what that was. And that's a fairly common sighting, 5 or 6 lights in the sky moving in formation and slowly, but not an airplane. So I did see that. It wasn't oh my God, what the heck is that? It was that doesn't look like anything that you expect to see in the sky when you're used to looking at the sky. I still can't tell you what that is. So I guess kind of. On the other hand, I have worked with scientists. I have worked at Los Alamos, not the bomb part. I am absolutely convinced that if scientists had found aliens, we would know about it by now.
Why is that?
Oh, just the idea of 200 people keeping a secret like that is just boggling. No way.
I think they're terrible at it. I think that's why we have constant leaks.
Well, you gotta admire the faith of the conspiracy theory people in organizational structures.
Oh, sure.
I'm wow, your fantasy government is a lot more efficient than my fantasy government.
Well, I think that's part of what makes conspiracy theories so attractive, especially if you're talking about the assassination of John F. Kennedy. How terrifying to think that a guy can just get a rifle and just do that, just change the entire course of the nation. How much more satisfying and how much more assuring to know that no, there are secret reptilian people that control everything. You can't see them or know their motives, but chill, they got this. Go about your business.
Yeah, it's less random, right? It's way less random, and in a way, it's more under control. It's just not under your control. I think in a way, it's comforting to people. I've been reading a lot for a project, mostly about survivor's guilt, and the basic thing about survivor's guilt is I think human beings would rather feel guilty than feel helpless. Right? I think we would rather feel like this is somehow our fault than we had no control. I think that's the basic root of survivor's guilt. Could be wrong about that, but that's kind of what I'm coming around to. So
I'm sure there's a bit of a case-by-case basis with it, but sounds solid to me.